I've been waiting a month. I want my cure.
We all do, sweetie. Sit down.
Can't a girl have a cup of coffee in peace?
They haven't learned how to live at ease with their mutant powers, so they're frustrated. Some lash out, while some have turned inward, letting their bitterness consume them. But they all feel dissatisfied with themselves and alone.
You've given us a place where we belong, Professor.
Just takes us hard-headed ones longer to realize it.
Forget about it, Rogue. We've all had a hard time accepting who we are.
Cured! I'm cured! See? My wings are gone. Dr. Adler's treatment works. I'm not a mutant anymore. You don't have to be mutants. You don't have to be hated. You can be cured.
We're mutants. That's what we are. There's nothing wrong with us that needs to be cured.
Look me in the eye and tell me that.
It'll be my pleasure.
Cyclops, no! It's not our place to tell other mutants what to do.
If Adler can really change mutants into ordinary humans, then each of us will have to look into his own heart and decide.
You won't be laughed at or feared anymore. You'll be like everybody else.
It's time we headed home.
Who wants to be normal?
Me. Take me next.
Me! Cure me!
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of GospelX, the Gospel according to the X-Men. My name is Jonathan, and this is Henry. Alright, so we are now in episode 10, and basically this episode is the introduction of Apocalypse, but very little was talked about Apocalypse actually. So what is the highlight of this episode for you, Henry?
I don't know, Apocalypse showing up, being like a giant boogeyman.
Right.
But he didn't really do much. So the part in the episode we're talking about is the part when the X-Men are actually on Muir Island. They're inside of the bar or the pub or the restaurant.
Yeah. Which you have saw.
Because it's a kid's show. It's not actually a bar.
Yeah, it's not a bar.
Yeah.
It's like a juice bar or something.
Yeah, they drink orange juice. But basically in the scene, what's happening is the X-Men are actually seeing the mutants in there.
Yeah.
That are just, because of their grief, because of their troubles and their desire to find a cure, they kind of just waiting there, self-absorbed, self-pitying themselves, very depressed. And Xavier is just saying that this is what happens when people have no place to go. No one accepts them. Not even themselves. They don't even accept themselves.
Yeah, which is interesting because he says that you cannot accept yourself unless others accept you. Which is really odd because that's a very passive approach. Now, how about the whole idea of just this whole self-absorption though? You could tell that this archangel or Mystique, his comments were, "Oh, you're not going to be made fun anymore," blah blah blah, right?
Yeah.
And that really reflects pretty much all the mutants in that bar, right? They were all self-absorbed of their own pain, their struggles, their sufferings. How can you speak into that? What do you have to say about that?
Well, I think that it's not something that you can kind of turn on and off, right?
Yeah.
All of these mutants have all this pain.
And it was developed throughout a process, right? It was throughout their life.
All this pain and all this rejection, and they think that all of it, all their problems and issues and sufferings come from a part of themselves, of their being that they can't change. And so they focus in on that.
The pain has become them.
Yeah.
They have become the pain, basically.
They hate that part of themselves. They hate themselves.
Yeah.
And so you have that part of that self-absorbed self-hate that makes it very easy for them to latch on. Because remember at the end of that scene when Mystique comes in and says, "Hey, I'm cured, you can be cured, everything's going to be okay," they instantly latch on. And they kind of lose all sense of reason and thinking. And rational thought. And they just go and just jump straight towards for whatever thing that they think they can bring, they can have a little bit of hope.
Right. And it's not like we were saying this, chatting before this recording. It's not like this individual can click and say, I'm not going to be self-absorbed. I'm going to get out of this right now, right? It doesn't come so quickly. It wasn't like, if this pain came gradually, the process of recovery is gradual. And it's so important that then, as a community, as us, as friends, we may know friends who are in this type of pain, in this suffering, that we ourselves, we have a role to play to be engaged more in their lives, to actually continue to like maybe take them out and chat with them so that they become less self-absorbed, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think everybody knows someone who's in pain, that is suffering through maybe physical ailments, maybe relational ailments. And if you leave them alone and leave them alone and you live your own life, you know, they're actually the outsiders looking in and seeing that what you have without those ailments and without those issues and sufferings, and they start to look at themselves and say, hey, you know, I'm not so good, and focus in on that. So just, I think the best thing you could possibly do is just bring them in and make them feel like they're part of the community, because that's what's making them self-absorbed in the first place, is that they feel isolated.
Right. If the community doesn't accept me, then I can't accept myself. And so therefore I'm self-absorbed in that, and it continues that vicious cycle. So the important thing, so the takeaway is we know, like you said, like we know of various individuals, friends, family members who are maybe suffering and maybe like in this isolation state. And maybe this episode is to just remind us how important it is to reach out to these people, to our friends and family, to continually to reconnect and connect with them, to say, hey, where you're at, how you're doing, right there, so that they won't make those irrational decisions that could result in negative consequences for themselves and also for those people who love them. Right? All right. Thank you very much, Henry. Thank you for continuing to bearing with us on this entire series. I know that we were missing a few weeks, but we're back and hope to see you next time on the next episode of GospelX.